Welcome to the Ignite Christian Business Podcast. Today's episode features executive chef and owner of Heavenly Waffles, Bob Haney. Heavenly Waffles, incidentally, are the best waffles we at Ignite have ever had, bar none. Order some for you and yours from heavenlywaffles.com. Let's dive in.
And now when I work, I do what needs to get done, and I don't really look at it as work.
Yeah.
Oddly enough,
you love what you do.
It's very strange.
Oh,
it's like
gosh.
if somebody would have told me I was going to put 16-hour days in almost every single day, I'd be like, oh, no, I'm kind of lazy.
Oh, that's good.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
that is good.
It's funny how God works, because none of this would take place without God. Because when I was in Taos, New Mexico, on a 2 or 3 day binge before I quit drinking, I came to one morning and literally and I didn't know it was God. Most of my life when I was drinking and doing drugs, God was literally just going, all right, I have to put you over here now, and just kind of taking me out of situations. Luckily, and I always believed in God, but I didn't think He was the one helping me. I always thought that I was just lucky that I made it through this situation or that situation. And so when I was in Taos, New Mexico, and I came to one morning and literally put His hand on my shoulder and said, you're going to die, you're going to end up in jail, or you're going to end up hurting somebody in a situation that, not that I was never violent, but in a car accident or something, an accident of sorts. And I didn't really care too much about myself at that time to have that be enough, because I had been through rehab 3 times before. But the thought of me hurting someone else in a situation that, because of my addiction, I was like, I can't. Finally, I was like, I can't do it. And I stopped. Started bartending 2 weeks later.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's literally because of God.
Yeah.
But God.
Yeah.
I'm
but
here.
God. But God. You're rolling, right? Good. Because guys, we're having a great conversation with Bob Haney, or better known as Bob the Waffle Guy. I love this guy. I love his wife. I love the product. And guys, let's talk again about the Ignite Christian Business Conference that we just got done with. And Bob was one of our sponsors, and him and his wife were there. And I always joke, because every time you give Bob and his wife a hug, they smell like waffle syrup. And I love that. I love the product. I love what you do. And again, we're just having a great conversation here. So welcome. And I want to welcome you, Bob. You're a great friend.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. So why waffles? What got you down that path?
A lot of people ask me that, and it wasn't really. I had cooked my entire life. So since I was 4 years old, one of my earliest memories is standing on a step stool over my grandma's stove, helping her, learning how to make Thanksgiving gravy. And that's kind of, the result of 10 marriages and 9 divorces between 3 parents, abusive, first stepdad, alcoholic father, who very controlling, he got custody of all of us kids. My life is like a bad Jackie Collins novel. My mom was, after her 3 years of waiting for my stepdad who adopted me when I was 2 anyway, stop abusing her and stop abusing alcohol. She finally found solace in the arms of the tennis pro at Happy Hollow Country Club, who was putting himself through medical school, who became an anesthesiologist. I mean, it's a bad Jackie Collins novel. But anyway, so what were we talking about? Where
About waffles.
Oh, yeah, okay, so cooking. Okay, ADD. Sometimes bring me back. So my grandmother was my rock, my foundation. When my stepdad got custody of all of us kids, I called her every single day from the time I was 7 until I was 13 years old, when I moved to South Dakota to live with my mom and stepdad. And so I would go to my grandma and grandpa's house every weekend. My My grandpa made the best soups and sandwiches in the world. My grandma made everything else.
Wow.
Amazing. And she was kind of a meat and potatoes girl, but her flavor profiles and how she seasoned and flavored things was amazing. And then my mom was an amazing cook, and she kind of took things to a different level. And then I just kind of went somewhere else. And so when my grandma turned 80 years old, she kind of quit eating. And so for about 8 years, I would drive up from Kansas City or Chicago, and I would come in about once a month and help her fill her refrigerator with foods, play cards, smoke cigarettes, and I made this variation of pancakes using 3 ingredients of a pancake recipe she made and 2 ingredients of a pancake recipe my mom made. I combined those 5 ingredients, and pancakes were born. So that's what Heavenly Waffles was initially, just a pancake crepe recipe. Mm. So one day there wasn't enough of one of the ingredients, but there was, which was sour cream, but there was yogurt in the refrigerator, and I'm like, oh, that'll work. And so that's how that pancake recipe came into play. And then I just kind of tweaked it over the years so that it was consistent. I modeled for 15 years. I don't know if I ever told you that, but I modeled for 15 years and lived in Athens and Madrid and Barcelona and Vienna, Milan, New York, San Francisco, Chicago, kind of all over. And everywhere I would go, I would cook for people. And I would give all of my recipes out. I still give all of my recipes out, except for pancakes. And so when I retired and I moved back to Omaha when I was 39, I worked in a couple of restaurants and just got tired of incompetent people not showing up on time, or when they did show up, didn't do anything. And so I trademarked the name Pancrepes. I started selling the mix as a batter, and I had them in 7 restaurants and a couple of grocery stores, and did the farmer's market for 5 years. Had 2 really big licensing agreements fall through, one with ConAgra and one with Ventura Foods. And then I moved to Austin, Texas, went to Le Cordon Bleu, graduated from there, moved back to Omaha, and started teaching while I worked on converting the original batter recipe to a shelf-stable dry mix, which took 5 years and 4 food scientists. We got into 250 Hy-Vees, no frills, Russes, and when we would go do demos from Minneapolis to Houston, we would sell out, but when we weren't there, they sat on the shelves. No one had any idea what a pancrepe was. I should have brought one of those boxes. So about 4.5 years ago, Kathy and I were driving to Arizona. We were taking her mom's car down there because her mom was a snowbird and she had a place in Scottsdale. We were driving down, and I had made pancrepes waffle style just because the pancrepes mix, you just add water to it. So, and I had made them waffle style, but they were just kind of heavy and they were dense and they didn't really get crispy at all. And so I did that, years ago. And so I never did it again because they really weren't very good. So as we're driving down to Arizona, we get a text from Kate and Allie, my bonus daughters, tennis coach, who had moved from, they played at Millard North. He was their tennis coach at Millard North, but he got another job in Arizona. And so they moved to Phoenix. And his 11-year-old daughter got a waffle iron for Christmas. And she ran into her mom and dad's room Christmas morning and crying. She's like, we don't have any Bisquick. Well, her grandmother's waffle recipe was using club soda and egg and oil and Bisquick. Dan's like, and they're laying in bed and they're like, we have pancrepes mix, just use pancrepes mix. So that's where the Heavenly Waffle recipe came from. Wow. And so Dan sent me a picture of it, and I was like, well, that looks different than what I had made. And I'm like, well, what did she do? And so he gave us that recipe. When we got to Arizona, we went and bought a Breville waffle iron, made it. Kathy and I were just both like, we're getting rid of pancrepes. However, we didn't get rid of pancrepes name. We went from pancrepes to waffles by pancrepes. I had been working on pancrepes for so long. Yeah. I was beholden to it because it was I made it for my grandmother, who was my rock, my foundation. So I couldn't let go of pancrepes. And we were doing an event in Williams-Sonoma, and this woman was eating a waffle, saw the sign, said waffles by pancrepes. She looked at the bag, and she goes, do I need a crepe pan? And I'm like, need a waffle iron. It's a waffle. So at that point, we got home that day. I called my patent and trademark attorney, and we trademarked the name Heavenly Waffles because my grandmother's in heaven.
Yeah.
And haven't looked back, got out of retail and went food service, and it's a better product. It's easier to make.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it happened.
I don't know anybody that doesn't like Heavenly Waffles.
It's
it's.
I don't think we've ever made them for anyone that was like, oh, they're okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good.
Right, Ben?
So Bob, then if someone is, I guess you don't want to sell necessarily. You don't want to sell a bag of Heavenly Waffle batter, right?
Right.
What's an ideal client for you?
Right now, our focus is food service. So hotels, restaurants, casinos, assisted living, schools, corporate restaurants, cruise ships, anywhere we can get them into hundreds of people's mouths so that they can eat them made properly, because they're a little different. It's a little different. There's a learning curve to making them. You got to blend them in a blender. Not a what are they called? Ninjas or a food processor, because basically what that does is it stirs it really fast. It doesn't blend it. You want that emulsification. You want that vortex pulling it down. Because we're replacing 40% of the flour that's in most pancakes, we're taking away 40% of that flour and adding 40% dry yogurt. So the protein doesn't absorb as easily as flour, as well as the moisture doesn't absorb in the dry yogurt as it does into the flour. So in order to make it a more stable emulsification, and I liken it to the difference between a vinaigrette, which is an unstable emulsification, and a mayonnaise, which is a stable emulsification. So we're a more stable emulsification, which also lends to Heavenly Waffles holding for 4 days. So if you blend it up on a Monday, it's still good on a Friday. No other waffle or pancake mix in the world, or recipe for that matter, does that. They all break down and separate and oxidize and turn brown. But because ours hold 4 times longer, actually 12 times longer, 4 days, for the food service industry, you save in waste, you save in labor, because you don't have to make it every single day. So literally for the food service, it's just it's a no-brainer. But and plus it's healthier, it's more versatile. Getting some executive chefs to understand that it's a new product, because every other waffle mix or recipe is basically a pancake mix in a waffle iron. Even like the Liège waffles, where you add yeast and let it rise for 24 hours, or the where you whip the egg whites into a stiff peak and fold it in. The base is still a pancake mix. The same with like the ones with pearl sugar. It's like, okay, well, you have a pancake mix that you're adding pearl sugar to that kind of crystallizes when you cook it and makes it kind of a little bit crunchy, and they're good, but you still have that big dough ball in your belly.
Yeah.
I'm tired. It wears you out.
Absolutely.
Heavenly Waffles don't wear you out.
Yeah. So Bob, let me shift gears here a little bit.
Okay.
So I know you and Kathy love Jesus. So and I know you don't have hundreds or thousands of employees, but how has serving Jesus affected the way you run your business?
It's kind of our whole, I guess when I first started this process, it had nothing to do with money. It still really doesn't have anything to do with money. It has to do with being able to share God's gift that He gave me and our product with the world. And I didn't think that it was fair that just the people who knew me directly, 1 degree of separation, were people who got to eat our products. And so that's our getting it into one mouth at a time is fine with me. If that's what it takes, then we will do that. And so having that frame of mind and that mentality, it's more about love than it is about. It's definitely not about money, because we're not making any money, much money right now. We're making enough money to keep growing and put it back into the company and keep getting, keep working our tails off. But I think that love-based feeling about our company and about our customers. I mean, our customers are amazing. Our customers they love Heavenly Waffles.
Yeah.
And the ones that, like, I'll talk about the table, Christine Ford.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a kitchen. They don't have a culinary team or staff. They have a bunch of really wonderful people working there who listened to the advice that I gave them on how to make Heavenly Waffles and the different recipes I've given them. And they're going through a 30-pound bag every 4 days.
Wow.
384 waffles every 4 days. And they don't have a kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like if I can share, which is kind of what Jesus did, share the word, share what my abilities and skills are to help them make money, then that's what's so much fun for us.
Well, one of the things I've always loved about you, Bob, is you didn't let past failures keep you from being successful.
Right.
and I'm always amazed at the different testimonies that you hear from business owners, and that's one of the things I love about Ignite is just having the opportunity to sit down with other believers, other Christian business owners, and just hear their testimony. Where how they got to do some of the things that they're doing now, but yet I listen to yours, and can you take 2 minutes and just kind of share briefly
all of my failures?
No, tell me about you being a loser.
Well, I look at, so with the history of my family history, there's insecurities and uncertainty and abandonment. And so when you're a kid and you don't know how to cope with those things, then you start doing things. I started smoking pot when I was really young. I started drinking when I was really young. And so that takes you down a path. And I was lucky enough to have athletic ability. And I, was about every other semester I was on the honor roll, but I was just lucky. And so, and God gave me grace to me immensely with abilities, and but I was my own worst enemy. I was when you're young and you're impetuous and think that you know everything. You can't learn anything, and so I didn't know that. I didn't know that I knew that I thought I knew everything, because I did know everything at the time in my mind. But when you can't learn anything, and you can't learn from your mistakes because you don't see your mistakes as being mistakes, you see it as being, the world, or God being mad at you, or God, taking it out on you, basically, as opposed to seeing it as an opportunity to learn from your mistakes, correct your behavior, and move forward. And until I was able to get sober, you don't have that. I'll give you an example. So when I was 35 years old and I was living in New York, and I went into the French Culinary Institute because I had ebbs and flows in the modeling industry, and you'd have months where you're not working and you're not making any money and you're living in New York and it's really freaking expensive. And so what am I going to do? So I thought, well, I'll go to culinary school. And so I went into the French Culinary Institute, and on day one of every culinary school in the world is Egg Day. And so Egg Day is and the pleats in a chef's hat are how many different ways there are to make an egg. A lot of people don't know. There's a little pearl of info.
Did not know.
And so later in life, I come to find out, and as an instructor, I learned that Egg Day has nothing to do with cooking eggs. It has to do with heat management. And so, but when I was arrogant and cocky at 35 years old, I walked into the French Culinary Institute and saw that they were making eggs. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to pay $60,000 a year to learn how to make eggs. I know how to make eggs, and left. Fast forward 9 years, when I was 44 years old, went into Le Cordon Bleu in Austin and said, and my ego and my humility had finally, and with wisdom and age comes, knowledge. And so at that point, I was smart enough to know I didn't know everything. And this was what my passion was. And I wanted to learn as much as I could. And I showed up 2 hours early and left 2 hours late and just was like, fill me up. Give me everything you've got, because I'm here to learn.
Yeah.
But when you're young, you don't know that. And so you tend to make all kinds of mistakes, and you look at it as the world, not believing in you, or it's everybody else's fault, or, the victim mentality. And I used that victim mentality for years and years and years, at my parents and everybody. It's like, well, no, you were that drug addict and alcoholic. You were the one making all those mistakes. Don't blame other people. Take it upon yourself to see the mistake, correct the mistake, and move forward. And then look at it as an opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
If you get to learn something every single day, that's a good day.
Yeah, that's a good day.
It might be hard.
Yeah.
It might be really hard.
Yeah.
There were days I didn't want to be around.
Yeah.
But luckily, I made it through, and here I am to say that if I can do the things, if I can walk out of a crack house on a Sunday morning in New York, in Harlem, and get to where I am today, anybody can.
Wow.
Literally anybody can.
Yeah, and that's such a testimony, because again, so many people let those past failures hold them back from success, hold them back from where the Lord has called you to be, and I think and Heavenly Waffles, it's just, and again, I love watching you guys. I love eating the product, but at the same time, I know that there's something so much bigger, and God's moving in Heavenly Waffles. He's moving in your life and in Kathy's life, and I love that. I just think that there's so much there, and I think this is just the very beginning. And I just love watching you, love hanging out with you. And
we don't get to hang out as much as we would like to.
Yeah, that's for sure. But you and I've talked several times about making it through this goofy, all this virus stuff and the lockdowns and stuff like that. But yet you kept the faith, you kept going, and I love what God's doing in your life. And guys, I'll end with this, guys. Jesus is in business. Is He in yours?
Thank you for listening to the Ignite Christian Business Podcast. If you would like to learn more and join the Ignite community, head to ignite-cb.com. That's the word ignite-cb.com. Our intro and outro music, Do It Now, was performed and graciously provided by Jasmine Brady. You can find more from Jasmine wherever you stream your music or by heading to jasminebrady.com.